Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up to the bar today on October 24th, I think, 23rd. I gotta get the date wrong every time, but we've bellied up to the bar today. We have a unique opportunity to talk to somebody who can relate to most of my children. Joining us, she's going to tell us about how to get through life in all dimensions. She's going to tell us about her book. She's going to tell us about marketing, all these different elements we're going to get into, but joining us, not from her hometown. She's joining us all the way from where there's a sad football team that spent way too much money on a quarterback that it looks she's going to fall out of her chair, with a team that branded themselves as America's team. But she's joining us all the way from they branded themselves as that. They weren't given that title. They were branded that. Joining us all the way from Dallas, Texas, it's Miss Ella Parlor.
That might have been one of the worst intros.
What? Worst intros? I thought that was a phenomenal intro.
I'm getting an echo. Are you hearing the echo?
I'm not getting an echo on my end.
Did it go away? It went away.
Okay, good.
Oh my gosh. The voice is in my head. Okay, perfect. I'm so glad.
Now we're going to try something here today, folks. So this is a newbie. I've got my TikTok running, the Above the Bar podcast TikTok running at the same. Are you logged in to TikTok, Ella?
I'm here. I'm ready to go. I got the camera there.
So I'm going to send you I don't know. Well, imagine I can send you a guest. So I'm going to send you a guest thing for Ella. I'm telling you, every time I hear it, I just think of that song. All right. So Ella Parlor says not on live. It says I'm following you, but not on live.
What does not on live mean? I'm here. I'm here.
See if you can log.
I'm in it. I just saw someone else's live.
Can you find me?
It's stepping out. This is the right touched. Yeah. So you don't have to I don't know if you can hear that there. I'm definitely in.
You're definitely in. Yeah.
Let me try to find you. Maybe it's because I'm not following you.
Maybe that's it.
All right.
I'm following you.
What's going to be your
It's going to be the Above the Bar podcast. Let's see. See this, folks. You're getting all kinds of behind the scenes right now. We're trying some.
It's okay. We're doing it for the. I know most girls they say it's their first time, and I really mean it. I mean it when I say this is my first time.
I've never done this before, brother. I've never. That's that thing with the gerbil. I know you've seen that where the hamster's drinking out of the water thing.
Okay, how do I mute you? So, all right, there. I just muted you. Okay, Ella Parlor joined.
All right, here you go. So I just sent you an invite. And now.
Oh, maybe it'll let me use a filter, Sean. That's what I don't like about StreamYard. I can't use my filter.
Yeah, you can. Oh, if you go into settings on StreamYard, click on settings. I will hook you up. Go to settings, go to camera, and then click on touch up my appearance.
Let's see.
Now, so let's see. I've got you there. I see you. Say hello.
Hi.
So what I think I'm going to do here, I guess, but I'm not getting an echo, so I'm good.
Okay.
It's weird. It's not an echo. Wonder what that is. Like, I wouldn't call that an echo.
Is it feedback?
Not feedback. I guess it's kind of a little bit of an echo. So I wonder if there's a way that if I mute me, this is fun. I'm actually loving this right now because I don't get to play and mess with new stuff too often like this. But you pull this all off very well there, Miss Ella.
Let's see. Well, while you do that, I'm going to see if I can find a filter. I love my filters.
Well, everybody needs a good filter. See, it's interesting. I wonder if I can.
I have no shame in my filter game.
Listen, you do what you got to do. See if I turn this. I can't turn your mic off because then nobody over here will hear us. So, okay, we'll just go from here. But all righty, folks. But as Ella and I are playing with this and see what we can get figured out, as always, we got the big board over my right shoulder for sticker and a cause. If you've got a book you've written, you've got a group you're a part of, you're supporting something, you have your own podcast, it doesn't matter what it is. You can reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, X. Our website is the Above the Bar Podcast. Our email is above the bar podcast at gmail.com. You let me know what you got going on. I'll give you the address where to send everything to, and we'll read about you live here on the air. Let everybody know what you've got happening, what you got going on, so everyone can support you, because that's how we all get a chance to grow. Now, talking about growing, we also got to talk about our sponsors. Our sponsors are Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York, and Budget Blinds of Schoharie. Budget Blinds is America's largest custom window treatment company. They handle everything from blinds, shades, shutters, drapery, outdoor roller shades, you name it, they do it, and they do it custom. That means it fit just for your home. It isn't big box cut down stuff that any Joe Schmo can have. This is stuff that is just for you, just for your home, just to make your home that extra special. And folks, the biggest thing that they offer that you can't get anywhere, I promise you, you call anyone you want to call any custom window treatment company in your area. Ask them, hey, if my dog eats the bottom of my window treatment or my cat decides to be evil Knievel off of it, tears it all up, will you replace it? They're going to tell you no. But if you reach out to your local Budget Blinds or Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, and Schoharie, you reach out to them and say, hey, I bought your window treatments. This happened. They have window treatments that come with a lifetime, no questions asked, one-time replacement warranty. So you can get anything and everything you want. You can get it all taken care of without any problems, any troubles whatsoever. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Budget Blinds of Hudson, and Budget Blinds of Schoharie. All right. All the house cleaning stuff is done. How are you, Miss Ella?
Well, I'm going back to the NFL comment because you had to strike a nerve bringing up NFL with me. I was actually hoping to talk about football with you.
Oh, I will always talk about football.
So I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. I still say to this day, I'm going to make it happen. Dolly Parton gave me hope last year. She became a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader at 70 plus years old, and I believe I could do the same thing. That is my ultimate career goal. I want to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. I'm shameless about this. It's going to happen. I don't know how, but I'm going to make it happen.
I'm going to say this, and I mean this in a very positive way. You have good Dallas Cowboy cheerleader hair. Like, you've got good hair for that. Like, you've got like the very nice, like when I think of a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, I think of that kind of like curl to the side, framing the face kind of a look. So you definitely have the hair for it.
Oh my gosh. So I could do the splits. That's about it. I have no dance talent. I'm about 80 pounds heavier than all those girls. But I still have faith. Dolly Parton did it, so I think I can do it. Thank you for the hair compliment. I
made
I'm
your
in love with
birthday.
you now. Yes, you did.
I'm
But I have to ask, are you still in upstate New York, and what is your stance with the Bills?
So I am still in upstate New York, and I am not a Bills fan in any way, shape, or form. I grew up in Baltimore, hence Ravens right here.
Okay.
I am a big Ravens fan. I've never been a Dallas, or not Dallas, but a Buffalo. Well, I'll take that back. I can't say I was never a Buffalo fan. And the only reason I say that is I always was a fan in during that 5 Super Bowl run. Like, I liked them then. We didn't have a team in Baltimore. It was one of those kind of things. My cousin's over there. She's hell yes, go Ravens. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that team. Like, why would you? I mean, you gave up Stephon Diggs, which was insane to me. Josh Allen is a solid quarterback. He's very much a Ben Roethlisberger prototype quarterback, big, huge body, hard to take down. But he has tendencies, in my opinion, to look like Brett Favre. Like, I'm going to throw this even though I shouldn't. That kind of a thing. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, well, I love every football team, and I get a lot of flack for this because I've worked with so many teams, and I have NFL players, we'll say, and it's a little iffy on the mom's side, but NFL players, football players, college players on both sides of my family. I love, love, love football.
Nice.
So I have a reason to love every single NFL team. And I am a very unapologetic bandwagon fan. So I love the Ravens. I was so happy but surprised, to be honest, to see them. I mean, they murdered Dallas, but they also beat the Bills this season. I did not expect that, coming into, what was it, week 2? So
Week
really,
3.
really
Yep.
week 3, yeah, really, I was very impressed by that. I like to see the Ravens win. I did not recognize that logo there, by the way. I think
Oh
because it's
yes.
black, or
Yep.
I don't know. But I guess I can say it says Baltimore. The Bills, I will say what I like about the Bills, and I just had this conversation last night. They are hands down the best fans. I've been to
Oh, that's
dozens
pretty
of
impressive.
stadiums
Yeah.
around this country. Yeah. Ran into some Bills fans in Southern California this past week. And Buffalo is known as the city of friendly neighbors, and they're just so good to their team. Dallas, I love the Cowboys, but Dallas fans are a little shameful sometimes. We throw food and drinks at our players when they don't win, and we get grumpy, and it's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing how we act after we lose a game, and sometimes after we win a game. And what I love about the Bills fans is after the game, they clean up the stadium. They
Really?
go and they walk to see their players get on the plane, and they cheer for them, whether they won or lose. And they just say, thank you for playing for us. The whole city shuts down the Thursday, Friday before game day. Sometimes the kids don't even have school because there's one road in to Highmark and one road out. And I just think Buffalo, I've never met someone from Buffalo I didn't adore. And I think of all the teams, like the Bills have like creme de la creme fans. They're so fun. I will go to a Bills away game, any stadium. They're just such a fun group of people. So I was kind of hoping you were a Bills fan, but again, love
Nah.
the Ravens. I love all the teams though. It's kind of embarrassing. I have a story for every team. I've just worked for so many of them.
Yeah, I'm a big old homer. I always say if Baltimore had a professional badminton team, I would root for it, have no doubt about it. I've just always been a homer for Baltimore teams. And look, folks, if you're real quick, so I can throw this out there. If you're joining us right now and you're logged in and you want to see a little bit more about Ella, you can always check out ellaparlor.com. That's where you're going to find her book, High Tolerance. You can learn about that. Please make sure you're taking a moment, like, share, and follow her, myself on all of our social media platforms. That's how all these things grow. That's how all these things happen. So please take a moment and do that for us. It's hugely, hugely important. But let's kind of get into who you are and how we get to high tolerance, how we get to teaching people about how to succeed in life, regardless of what they're dealing with and everything. So you have under your moniker USMC Brat.
Mm-hmm.
And something tells me Brat should be all capitalized. Just looking at you here. So your dad, if I remember correctly, was a major.
Mm-hmm.
Did he
Yes.
retire out? Did he do full 20, the whole 9 yards?
He he actually, I don't fully understand. Like, he had retired, but technically did not fully retire until 2020. He got
Oh,
some
that
type
makes sense.
of something. I don't fully understand, to be honest. I don't really know what he did either, which is kind of embarrassing. All I know is that he was a Mustang. So he started off
Yep, makes
enlisted, then
sense.
became an officer. And luckily, my brother and I didn't have to move around too much. We stayed in Southern California, but we did get to go to a lot of the bases around the country. So that was fun. But luckily, we were able to go to the same school year in and year out. And I wrote an article that I published on LinkedIn a few years ago about military brats. And this was born because we have these ERGs in corporate America. It's called employee resource groups. And these groups represent various underrepresented, groups within an organization. So it could be African American, Latinx, women, LGBT. And I helped start and kick off a military veterans ERG for a company that I was with, a Fortune 500 company I was working with at the time. And I think that there's just such a gap in how we in corporate America value, our veterans and how we understand hierarchy. And so I wrote this article because while of course I didn't serve in the military, I grew up with a lot of military militant values and and scheduling. And so I wanted to share my experience of how I'm able to pull my experiences as a military brat, a title that I wear extremely proudly, and then working in corporate America, and where I think that more corporations need to invest not only in veterans, but the spouses, children, parents of veterans, and understanding, the bigger picture of what makes this country so great. And that's why companies thrive in this uh, country. So I was really, really proud to kick that off and work on it. And it really was born of the idea that, military bases. So I'll say a little bit about myself. I have been in the wine and spirits industry for 15 years. It's going on a little bit longer. So you sipping on some bourbon there? What are you sipping on?
So this is a local company to the capital region that you should tell all your contacts about, called New Scotland Spirits.
Okay.
This is their straight rye whiskey. And what makes them extra special in this region is the owner is a guy named Jesse Sommers. And Jesse, I'll only hold this against him a little bit. He was an O in the Army, just like your dad. He was an O, he was an O in the Army, not in the Marine Corps. But he does things like coming up here. They'll do for Veterans Day. They do a hump around Albany, and they go out and do this whole big thing. He's got what a white dog is? White dog whiskey.
No, what is that?
So white dog whiskey is a whiskey that has never been aged in a barrel.
Age. Yes.
So
Okay.
as soon as it kisses the barrel, it goes right into a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have a white dog. Let me see if I can grab it. Called 68 whiskey. And if you notice, if you know the Army 68 whiskey is a medic. So they have this as kind of an ode to the medics that are out there. But they're a local right here in the Helderbergs of New York. People are very surprised all the time when they find out how much bourbon and whiskey come out of this area, because rye especially is actually a New York grain. Like, that's a New York thing, rye. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's here. So it's a very unique one. But so 15 years you've been in that industry.
Yeah, and I like that you taught me something new. I'm very comfortable saying when I don't know something about whiskey.
Good.
I've been in the space. There's a lot. White dog. Usually, I would just say clear spirit, or unaged. So I like that. White dog sounds cooler.
It sounds way cooler.
Yeah, and yes, New York. So I will say, of all the states that I've worked across, I think all 50 states officially. But New York, because I've always been based out of Southern California up until recently relocating to Dallas, Texas, I usually had a counterpart in New York. So ironically, as big as that market is, there was always someone else covering that territory. So I don't know as much about the market. And I've been working out there a little bit more this year. And that's when I learned about their bourbon scene, the rye scene, I guess, their whiskey, their local distilleries. I'm like, how did I not know that New York had so many? It makes sense. Most of the major wine and spirits companies in the United States are headquartered in New York City. So there's obviously something going on there from a financial standpoint. But I've spent a lot of time in the city, not much elsewhere, but
Away from there.
I do love
such a different, I'll be honest with you. Like, so, and just kind of an FYI, the reason we have so many distilleries here is when Lord Commander Cuomo was governor here in New York, he created this thing that for $1,000 you could get a distiller's license. The only requirement was 75% of the product had to come from New York State, like, so what you were using. So we have all these apple orchards. So all the apple orchards started making like apple brandies and stuff like that. And then some of the other places started coming along and saying, well, we also have all these grains. So we can do that and we can make the grains. There's kind of a emerging wine industry. There's a woman I've met recently. She's over in the Hudson Valley, and she has this, like, I think it's a Zinfandel or something like that, that came in number one a few years ago at the big California wine festival. It wasn't like gold star, no, it came number one out of 1,300 different wines, and it's all coming out of the Hudson Valley. So they're having kind of a resurgence in that market. So I'd tell you, it's here, but it's a lot of small batch stuff. It's not that Seagram's monster, we own everything. It's not the Heaven's Hill, we've got it all wrapped up. It's a lot more of the smaller distillers that are out here doing this, like these guys. I love them to death, but if somebody started saying, "Hey, we need you to ship to all 50 states," they'd never be able to do it. Like they wouldn't be able to. It would be too big of an animal for them. So,
Yeah.
so now I'm curious though. So how do you go from, like, what was your, like, did dad ever want you, like, hey, like, I always wanted all my sons to become Marines. One of them became a puddle pirate and joined the Coast Guard. Um, but yeah, I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh, you're such a hater, Sean. I love it.
Listen,
I no, so I wasn't allowed to have a Barbie growing up. I don't know if I've ever told this story. I wasn't Barbie, the Barbie doll thing. My dad wasn't having that, but I was allowed to have a US Air Force Barbie doll in her dress blues. My dad really wanted me to be a pilot for the Air Force. That was what he was hoping for. I think somewhere in the back of my head, if I'm honest, I still have a bit of a fantasy of working with one of the branches from a legal standpoint. So maybe going back to law school. That's one of my fantasies. I know that I'm very much aging out, but we're living a long time. So never say never. I still could be an old Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and an old JAG lawyer. Um, but yeah, that was definitely what he wanted for me. For my brother, there wasn't as much pressure. My brother was an incredible athlete. So that really got the focus. And I think there are a lot of parallels between when we look at the recruitment, when we look at the values, when we look at just American culture, there are a lot of parallels between the military and sports, American sports, I would
for
say.
sure. Absolutely.
Um, Going back to Dallas Cowboys, obviously being America's team and Roger Staubach, one of the things that makes him so incredible was that he was a veteran of the US Navy and served our country. And I think that for a long time we saw a lot of parallels as time goes on, and you could probably speak to this a little bit more from the recruiting side. We don't see that
Oh
crossover
God,
between
no,
military and sports as much.
never.
Um, but there are, I think, a lot of parallel, we'll say, values. Would you agree?
Oh, well,
Um,
look, Ted Williams, the famous Red Sox, Ted Williams, fought as a pilot in World War II, was playing for the Red Sox, fought as a pilot in World War II, went back to playing for the Red Sox. The Korean War started. He left the Red Sox again, went back to being a pilot in Korea, and then came back and still was one of the best baseball players ever to live. But we would never. I mean, one of my favorite ever football players is a guy named Artie Donovan. Played for the Baltimore Colts, World War II Marine, defensive lineman, Hall of Famer, but we will never see that again. We have gotten to the point with athletes that the idea of an athlete leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table to go serve their country, people would be like, "You're insane. That's not for you. That's for other people. You've honed your body to do this." We would never, even like Elvis going and joining the war effort, which was obviously just a propaganda thing. But Elvis going, we'll never see a day where, like, all of a sudden Justin Bieber or um, Justin Timberlake are like, "Sign me up. I'm going to entertain the troops while we're going along here." Like, that shit's not happening. It's not.
I think that And it's so hard again because as a civilian, and a female, let's add that into the mix here. I can kind of sit on my high horse or sit on my soft couch and say, "Oh, I would hope that more that it is permeated and is mainstream and is understood." Going back to what I said about the ERG at a company that I worked with, is that there, because of the we'll say separation that's happening, exactly like the focus on the commercial um value of someone and how much money can that person make versus service to your country, service to your family, service to the Lord, service, right? These two really should be in tandem, and I try to show that value in how I show up at work, and show that you can be in service and make money at the same time.
Yeah,
But there seems to be a disconnect here, and I think that that's part of what's breaking apart with American culture today. Exactly what you're talking about, I think, is something that I hope that we can reverse engineer and fix. I'm certainly not the person to do it, but I don't have the solutions here. But I think that that's a disservice to all of us if
for
we
sure.
can't imagine the Justin Bieber. By the way, he's Canadian, so like maybe not
I
Justin
mean,
Bieber.
listen, we get it. Look, he wrote a whole song about Diddy. He might be damaged goods at this point. I did it for a Ferrari. Yeah, I guess you did, brother. I guess you was
Gosh.
damaged goods at this point. You know, he took your grape. But,
Any
and listen, folks, if you're catching Ella right now and you're just logging in, you've got ellaparlor.com. You can definitely check her out there. If you like the way listen, I love this energy, the back and forth with her asking questions. You can check her podcast also, Eavesdrop with Ella. You can catch her there, and she's got her Instagram, Ella Parlor. You can look it up. She'll pop up there. YouTube, Eavesdrops with Ella. Check out what she's got going on. So now moving forward a little bit, because I love this dialect, the way we're talking here, and these are all things that I'm 1,000% with. I'm curious, as you talk about your work ethic and the things that you've got going, I think about my own children. So I have one son that wanted to join the Coast Guard. He lived almost his whole life with me in the Marine Corps. There was never he never he graduated from high school the same year I retired. So it was always there for him. I have other sons who, one that never knew it, one that maybe remembers it a little bit, and one that half of his life. Do you think for yourself and your work ethic for creating things like high tolerance and having the podcast and going to work every day and and maintaining an industry for 15 years, how much do you think, as being a Marine Corps brat, being that, and listen, folks, brat's not a bad thing. It's just a term that comes along. But being that person helped to instill those values to you moving forward for a work ethic?
I put USMC Brad on my LinkedIn, and I do that for a couple reasons. One, it is, I would say, if you had to really distill who I am as a person, that, those 8 letters will give you a pretty good insight into, yes, the work ethic, the values, the discipline, the expectations, the expectations, the wanting to win. I'm extremely competitive. The high tolerance, right? Taking it back to the book that I wrote. I know that I move and think differently than a lot of the children of civilians. I know that I do because it was brought to my attention all the time as a child. The expectations that were set by my teacher were below what my father had for me, coming home, right? And then when you add this pride and service that comes into it, there's something, and I don't know if your children experience this in any capacity or their mother, but there is something, whether you're in active duty or not, that you have a wherewithal that there are people who are putting their life on the line for your safety, your protection, your provision, and you have a acute awareness of that. I grew up going to, the funeral of both those who've served, because my father was also a police officer for
Oh,
LAPD.
okay.
So having that acute awareness of
Wow.
there's something bigger than me and everything I have is a gift, that absolutely goes into my work ethic, my drive, and how I process things. It also helps me take a step back, because at the end of the day, I'm just selling booze, and it's like, okay, no one's going down my watch, y'all. Like, we're okay here. It can be really stressful. There's a lot of money on the line, and
Sure.
money, of course, matters. But I do have that acute awareness of, like, there are bigger things at play, much bigger than what we are doing here today. And so I think that absolutely, that you will see that woven through the fabric of everything I do. And that's why I put it on my LinkedIn. First reason. Second reason is I do want to signal to anybody else who maybe feels overlooked, underappreciated. Again, as a family member of someone who's served, someone who has served, whatever it is, I want someone to know that these are my values. First and foremost, I identify as a Christian woman, like, first and foremost. But then secondly, I'm very, very proud to be an American. I love being an American, and I'm proud to be the daughter, granddaughter, niece, cousin of several servicemen and women. So I think that absolutely it permeates. It permeates into everything that I do.
And saying I love that, and you know what, folks, we're kind of skirting some things. You've also had some personal, not just watching these other people and watching things going on, and I want to know how all this feeds into high tolerance, and I want you to tell people about high tolerance. But you've also had multiple surgeries, cancer scares, health issues. You've also done some things that I don't even know, like I can be kind of that a jackass funny when I need to be that, as I would say, like kind of that service member Marine Corps funny, like
Hmm.
saying some silly things that most people don't want to listen to. Or they're like, "Oh, did you oh, you said that." You like you got to be in that mindset to understand. Like I was telling a story to somebody recently, and today I would never use this term because I'm 10 years out of the Marine Corps. But I remember when I first got out, looking at somebody who was acting a fool and being like, dude, you need to relax. You look like a special needs kid. And we would say that in the service. I'd never say that today, but in the service, we would say that to each other because it's just kind of like stop acting like an idiot kind of a thing. But what's interesting to me is you did all these things. How does all this feed into um, the book, High Tolerance? Like, how does all that kind of go together?
Well, high tolerance was born. Yeah, I was in a hospital and really contemplating the meaning of life. And I was in so much pain because I had these surgeries, and the only thing I could really move was my two thumbs. I was in so much pain I couldn't watch television. I
Oh,
didn't know it was possible to hurt watching television, because just that slight crane of my neck put enough pressure on my body that I couldn't, just moving my neck like this. It was
oh,
virtually impossible. And then to have to hear television that you can't see, it was very frustrating. It was a very frustrating experience. And so television was off the table within the first 30 minutes. It was like, turn it off. I don't even want to try to put the volume up or down. And so, yeah, as I laid there, I just started writing that first night. I will say my father, I mean, I'm a total daddy's girl. I love my dad. He's my, well, for up until very, very recently, my favorite person on this planet. I do have to say I'm madly in love with this fiance of mine. So
oh,
it's kind of a weird thing for me, but I'm such a daddy's girl, and my dad has been my number one person for so long. He is beyond the definition of strong. I have, like, I've done 2 podcasts with him. They're my most listened to podcasts. He's a very powerful speaker, a very incredible man. I have 2 highlights about him on my Instagram. I mean, I'm just his biggest fan. He's just incredible. The world is a better place because he's here, and he is strong. Nothing phases him ever. But seeing me in a hospital bed with all these tubes and beeping machines, and Lord knows what he saw as, within the Marines, and then also as an LAPD officer. But that was a little too much for him to handle. He lasted about 20 minutes in the hospital room, and then the rest of the time just stayed downstairs in the lobby. And he was like texting, like, if you need anything, I'm down here, but I'm gonna stay down here. And he
No,
didn't
I
go
get
back up.
that though. I
He
get
didn't go
that.
back up to the room. And, I think what I have always loved about being, I say, be the eyelash. So you could take someone who's like a big, strong, giant man, right? But I don't care how strong you are. You get an eyelash in your eye. That, as weak as that little eyelash is, okay, as pathetic as it is, and it can't hurt a fly, it's going to bring you to your knees, and
Oh,
it's
it
going to
absolutely.
drive you crazy, right? And so I always think you don't have to find strength in just, you just be, right? Your strength is in whoever you are. Be the eyelash. And so I think what I saw with my father is this big, strong guy that just about everybody's afraid. I mean, he's the kind of man, he walks, he parts the sea. He walks, everybody just naturally steps aside, right? He's got that presence. He's just a very strong, intimidating man. And so, um, but I'm his little girl. So as much as he's strong and all these things, I've seen sides of him that nobody else will see. And he has, of course, a soft spot for his little girl. And so I think what that taught me was that everybody has that Achilles heel. Everybody has something that they're passionate about, something that they hold precious. And everybody has that limitation. As strong as my dad, and he's seen a bunch of blood and guts, he couldn't handle mine.
Right.
Right? And
That was it.
so we all have our limitations. And so recognizing that strength is relative, right? The same way courage is relative, right? That fine line between courage and stupid. I'm not courageous because I get on a stage and speak. I don't have a fear of speaking. I have a fear of roller coasters. That's why I don't do it. Am I really courageous if I'm doing something that I'm not afraid of? Yeah, everybody else is afraid of it. But understanding that all of those things are relative, it really does help you have a really understanding of what your purpose is, and not being so caught up in titles or ranks or what someone else did. And so as I'm sitting in this hospital bed, I'm just reflecting on all of these things. Okay, Ella, you have these executive titles, and you've done, $1 billion in sales with your marketing campaigns, and you have these things, but are you really serving your purpose? Are you bringing it back to the service point of it? And I really started thinking about, okay, what can I do to take my story and serve others? And that's when I started writing the book High Tolerance. I wrote it for really anyone who's stuck in a hospital bed and feels like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person going through this suffering right now. Nobody is suffering like I'm suffering.
Nobody
Okay, well,
understands my pain.
yeah. We all feel that way because that's a lie that we tell ourselves. It's a lie that the enemy tells us in the thick of thick. That my book is for you. When you're thinking, how do I build high tolerance? How do I get stronger? How do I come back? How do I fix my mentality so I can keep persevering? How did that person build that? High tolerance has a few different meanings. Of course, being in the alcohol industry, having a high tolerance for liquor is something that I've always been very proud of. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who can outdrink me. I do love my whiskey. And you don't become a marketing director of a whiskey company without knowing how to throw them back. But then also having a high tolerance for pain, having a high tolerance for people who think differently than you, people who come from different backgrounds. And so that's kind of where high tolerance was born, with the hope to, again, kind of bring it back to center and purpose. Whatever it is that you're doing, just making sure that you are in a space of serving other people. And while I'm not saving lives by selling and marketing alcohol, I would say that I've transformed a lot of lives. The people that I've been able to work with, the people that I've been able to empower and build their careers, and, build spaces where people can feel safe and empowered, and help them grow and reach their goals.
So you got your first question, and it's ironically enough, this is from retired Sergeant Major David Stocks. Hey, Sergeant Major, you might have known her dad. Her dad was a Mustanger, LDO Major out there. So you might have known her old man. But he's curious, like, the high tolerance and the things you're talking about, how can you apply that to relationships, male and female relationships, and how they're affected?
Ooh, romantic relationships? Is that what he's saying at?
Yes, that's what he's asking.
Ooh, I love talking about love. Um, Yeah, so I will say one of the challenging things, so I recently fell in love. I'm engaged to this amazing man, but I'm 35. Well, I'm gonna be 35 in 4 days. I'm 35 years old, and that's a little bit later for some people to find their first husband. And so I've analyzed love a lot, and what I've realized in the last couple years of my life is that my tolerance for other people wasn't as high as I thought it was. As compassionate as I pride myself upon being, when it comes to my expectations of men, because I had a dad that set the bar so dang high
Mm.
that I saw every ounce of weakness in another man that fell short. Like my dad would literally figure out where I was if I was pumping gas, and he would like show up and pump my gas for me. I grew up like that with that expectation. And it's not about I have to ask for it, but the expectation is if you really want to be with me, you're going to take care of me holistically, not just financially and buying me purses. That's not what I need. I want someone who's thinking, no, I don't want you pumping your gas because you're going to get gas on your clothes. And I want you to stay, things, little things like that that my dad did, opening my door always. My dad set the standards so ridiculously high that I didn't realize that as much.
Interesting.
Until I kept looking at every, we'll say, deficit anytime someone didn't reach that ridiculously high, again, without having the military values, without having that military background, that the organization, the discipline, the ranking, all of that, then civilian men just don't think like men who served. And so here I am holding these other men to that standard, and again, I'm doing both them and me a disservice and not recognizing that and not having open communication. So, a high tolerance is not just about having a tolerance for people who think differently than you, but having the self-awareness to know, wow, I'm holding this person up to standards that maybe I myself don't even meet. I'm expecting service from this person, but what have I done to serve this person? And really thinking about, I think we get into relationships, and I have to fight this all the time with my fiance, who's an incredible man. My dad likes him, by the way. First
Well,
and only man my dad's approved of ever. Um, I have to remember it's not about what is he doing for me? What are you doing for me? What are you going to give me? You didn't give me this. You skipped this. You forgot this. No, it's what am I forgetting to give him? What am I, again, constantly being in that service? And that requires, again, a high tolerance of understanding like the importance of serving others. And I think that's something that what we lose, especially today, because gosh, we are so selfish,
oh, sure.
as a culture, as a society, individually. We're so selfish. So stop thinking about what she gonna give me and start thinking about what am I doing to give, and just keep giving. Always be in acts of service, service.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that. That goes back to there's a great saying from Zig Ziglar. He used to always say, "Help enough people get what they want, and you'll get what you want." It's that service element, and it's funny you keep saying service. In my opinion, if you told me you were a Methodist like myself, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense," because we're always talking about service. It's a very Methodist thing to discuss. And look, folks, if you want to know about more about Ella, you want to know what she's got going on, make sure you're checking out ellaparlor.com. Parlors, PARLOR.com. You can see what she's got going on there. If you're just joining us and you've got questions for Ella, you want to know about, hey, what was it like to get up on a stage and do stand-up comedy or writing a book? How have you used these high tolerance pieces and learning to serve other people, in these type of situations? How has that helped you out? Drop your questions there. We got another one here from David. Uh, let's see. Interesting. David, I like this question. Could you run into the danger zone of having a transactional relationship? And I think what he's saying is if you're constantly serving someone else, do you run into that chance where all of a sudden, and we're getting close to closing the bar here, folks, where you're running into that situation where, well, I've served you so much, I should start to see something coming back. where it's very transactional. Like, how do you remind yourself that it's better to give than to receive?
Yeah, the transactional thing is huge. I talk about this a lot with individuals at work. When you're in a leadership position, you'll find that a lot of your relationships become transactional because you're in these, we'll call them partnerships, that are transactional, right? They're contractual. They have that. I think that to avoid being in a transactional relationship, what I say is just try to think again, thinking we are so naturally selfish. It's natural that we take more than we realize. So, a big thing I say is it's not just about giving, we'll say you're at a line in Starbucks, right? It's not just about buying the coffee for the person behind you, but just engaging in that conversation, right? Just you're serving them by being in fellowship with them and just talking to them because a lot of times we don't even look at our neighbors, at our strangers, and look each other in the eye and just exchange communication. You get something, you're getting, so it becomes synchronistic there. And there is the law of reciprocity that it's natural when someone is giving to us, we naturally want to give. If you're worried about becoming a doormat, right, and you're worried that you've been taken advantage of, then that's where you got to start thinking about how are you giving to yourself,
Yeah, so
right? So
you're dealing
not
with past
taking from
traumas there.
others, but giving to yourself. Yeah. Yeah,
You're
but
you're
thinking about
you're
how you're
so right
giving
about
to
past
yourself.
traumas. Yeah, like if I
Mhm.
if I'm sitting there going, "Well, I can't give this person too much. What if they start stepping on me or treating me like a doormat?" That's probably because you have past trauma that you did the right things and somebody else abused it. That's where I would say those mindsets come from. You gave and you gave and you gave, and someone kept taking without giving back, and you were used as a doormat. That's when you're worried about those things.
I actually would say, and this comes up with nice guys, right? Nice guys. I dated a man who was a very nice guy. Nice and kind are not the same. When you talk about a doormat who gives and gives and gives, what you have to think about if you find yourself in that position, what was your motive for giving? Were you really coming from a place of selflessness or were you coming from a place of hoping that that person would give you love? Because ultimately you were still being
Ooh.
selfish. And so sometimes we think that the act of giving, I could stand on the outside and you see a wife making her husband dinner, right? I don't know all that's all I see on the outside. It's only she who knows the motivations behind why she's doing that. The difference, the action is the same. If she's doing it to serve and love on her husband to make sure he's sustained and he had a hard day at work and all these things, that's great. Now, if she's doing it so she can get something in return or because she's trying to fill a void or she knows about an affair he's having and she thinks if I just keep him at home, your motivations are only yours to know, and you have to get in tune with yourself. It's not just about being a nice person who does kind acts. It's about what is your motivation? Is your motivation to serve, or is it that that person will love you more? Because I'll tell you right now, if you're doing to get love, then that's where you got to work on yourself a little bit more. Oh, they're making my birthday dinner, and it smells really good, Sean.
Oh, wait a sec. So they're making it. So they're not taking you out. I mean, like this is a real good man. So he is actually making the meal right now. I mean,
I don't
that's
know what it is, but it smells really good. I think I smell cornbread, which is my favorite, and some type of chicken.
sorry,
I
Major. You know, I always got you. Someday you're gonna make it back here on the right coast and leave that left coast life and come see us back. You missed a good leaf peeper season. Let me tell you something. Sergeant Major David Stocks. I've got two sergeant majors in my 20-year career that love to death. One was a guy, Sergeant Major Winters. The other was Sergeant Major Stocks. And Sergeant Major Stocks will tell you, I gave him a ration of shit over the years we worked together, but he gave me one of the nicest compliments I received in a lot of years. We saw each other when our old CO retired. He goes, Murph, he goes, I don't let no, and I know him. He's like, I never let no one talk to me like you talk to me. And I wasn't like I was a dick, but I would walk up to him and be like, Sergeant Major, you can't do that shit. And he'd be like, why? Because you can't. You're gonna get me sent to jail. You're gonna get you sent to jail. We all gonna go to jail. And I ain't got no way to explain it. And he'd be like, nah, Murph, we're fine. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail with this guy. Because he was always off the cuff, loving it. But you know what? Your dad probably knew guys like that were
Oh, yeah.
like you meet those folks. So you know you're writing this book. I mean, what was some of the reactions you're getting from folks? Like, here you are coming out of this super physical and mental traumatic situation, and you're like, I'm gonna write a book about it. I'm gonna write a book to teach people how to like figure out how to like build their tolerance for the world around them, dealing with life's, different difficult situations. What was that reaction like?
Jeez. I will say I'm trying to do the audiobook and it's really hard for me to get through. I can't get through the 2 last chapters of the book without crying. It's pretty traumatic for me to
You want me to read it?
reread and relive.
You want me to read it for
Um
you? As I laid in the
Bring
hospital
your
bed.
voice in. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
listen, we can
yeah.
always we'll do it exactly in this voice here. As I laid in the hospital bed, trying to figure out what my next move was.
As my uterus.
The sound of TV hurt my entire soul as my utilitarian uterus. Like I could do this. I think my voice saying uterus in your audiobook would absolutely level it up.
Oh, that's amazing.
As my
Yeah, so
as my uterus.
I will say, like, I know for a fact if I tried to write that book right now, it would not be the same. First of all, it wouldn't be as raw, it wouldn't be as
Right,
resonant, and I would probably just have this desire to kinda distance myself from it. That said, it's out there, can't
done.
cat's out of the bag. There's nothing people have that book on their shelves, there's no taking it back, and what I will say, what shocked me is, it landed on several bestseller lists, which I just did not expect. That blew my mind. Having people line up for book signings and having complete strangers reach out and share how the stories touch them because I'm walking people through my career, we'll say A to Z or A through, the first half, whatever it is of my career, how I built it, where I started right from my very first job, and the way that I think it touched both men and women, is just the fact, again, that service that comes through, the idea of always do your best in whatever room you're in. It doesn't matter if you're just a server or you're just a hostess. Do your best because you have no idea what opportunities are going to come your way because of how you carry yourself in the little details. When you handle the little details well, people want to give you more responsibilities.
1000%.
Um, and then also just being able to articulate something that and when I say something, I'm talking about the pain and suffering, right? So we all have pain and suffering that looks different, but just being able to, I had a man. My problems are more feminine related, we'll say. I talk about how I thought I'd be a mom right now, and women my age are having babies, and I'm having tumors cut out of me, and that's not fair, Lord, and why me? And I thought that was more feminine leaning, but I had a man hug me and he cried in my chest, talking about how he has felt that in his work that he does, they don't understand his health issues and his that he has to take time off of work from time to time because of his health issues that he has. And so I think this idea that a lot of us are suffering in silence and just knowing that you're not alone in the suffering. You might feel like you're alone in whatever your specific journey is. My specific journey is so strange and weird and different, especially adding that alcohol career into it. But at the end of the day, we all bleed, we all suffer, we all want to be loved. And as corny as that sounds, I don't know that enough of us are telling those stories. We wait until we're gone to start telling those stories. And so to tell that story in the middle of my life, I think I can step into my power and in my next chapter of, I don't want to say chapter anymore because I wrote a book, but step into my next phase.
Phase,
Yeah, phase of going,
scenario.
yeah, when you have a taste of death, whatever that is, and I did, when you get that taste, it really does shake up how you approach everything else. It changes you in a very visceral way that there's a level of anger that comes out. There's a level of audacity that I have that I'm like, you and your big title and your big money and your big house and your who I don't care who you are. Like, you don't scare me because
It
you know
has
what's
less of a
really
value
scary?
to you. It has less of a
Yeah.
value to you.
Yeah. Well, what really scares you is, I'll tell you what's scary is, I don't care how much money you have, if you find yourself in a hospital bed, even with all I had like the best care money could buy, but I was still alone. Like, I
Right.
wasn't alone. Again, I have
No,
loved
but I get
ones,
it what
but
you
I
mean.
was alone, you
It
know?
was your burden, it was your pain, it was your situation, it was yours. No matter how anybody came in and be like, "Oh, baby, I got you. Don't worry about." Like, no, 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 no. This, I appreciate you, but this is my look, folks. We got a couple more minutes left. If you're out there and you got questions for Ella, you want to know about the book or her stand up routine or however any of those things were, you can also check her out on ellaparlor.com. You can find her book on Amazon, High Tolerance. You can check that out. All these different things. So, have you figured out what the next chapter for you is, the next scenario, like other than getting married and all those kind of things? But like, where do you want to see this go?
Yeah, I'm building that as I figure it out. Again, when I wrote the book, the intention was to completely leave the alcohol industry. I thought it was a breakup letter, like I hate you. I'll never talk to you again. I'm done. I'm out of here. And then like I mentioned, there were so many people in the industry, bartenders, bar managers, people who work at, I had a meeting with a really big retailer buyer, people who work at the retail space who sell alcohol, in all different spaces have reached out to me. And there is this feeling of we aren't allowed to talk about our experiences because we are in a particular position that it's a very nuanced space, right? Like, imagine you go to a bar and a bartender starts telling you about their problems, right? They're not
Right.
allowed to do that.
Well, they're
And
supposed to be
so
psychiatrists. Yes.
right? But it's like day in and day out, and it's like they're on their feet, we don't always get that reprieve or space, and where people are getting that reprieve or space at the bar, I don't get that reprieve necessarily at a bar. I do and I don't, right? Because I'm thinking of the business of the bar because that's
Right.
my business. And so even if I walk down the grocery store, if I'm in a grocery store and I pass the wine aisle, I'm looking at the displays, I'm looking at oh well, look, Gallows got that end cap, and it's harder to turn off.
I
So
get it.
where people find that escape, that's where we live in the escape space. And so to be able to just be the first book to kind of say, hey, there are thousands of us in this industry, there are thousands of us who, yeah, we work in this space, but we care about health and balance as well. What I'm hoping to do is have more discussions where we are allowed to have that platform to speak and empower one another. The burnout for us is real and in a very interesting way, and our vantage point is so different than everybody else who uses our workspace to escape.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping to empower more smaller distilleries, like you mentioned, your friend. I hadn't heard of that distillery. I'm really glad you put it on my radar. Working with smaller distilleries using my strategic approaches and sales and marketing tactics that I have from working for these really big billion-dollar companies, and really empowering smaller brands that want to grow and create family companies and just help more people find whatever their purpose and success is in the work that they're doing in this alcohol space, where again we're not always given the platform to talk about health and balance and things that matter in life.
So I got to ask you this question. Nate popped up a moment ago, but he just gave a like. I don't know if he's watching or not. So Nate's a good buddy of mine, and he would ask this question. So I'll ask for him. Bef- Do you have your favorite, since you're in the alcohol industry? We'll go with alcohol to meal pairing. Do you have one that you're like, if I'm having this, I have to have this. This is my go-to.
I have so many. That's really, really hard. I have so many. So how about this? Give me a protein so I can like narrow it down. Just pick one.
We'll go with fish.
Oh, I love fish.
So do I.
Um,
I'm a big fish person.
so when I have sushi, for example,
Okay.
I love two things. I love sake. I prefer cold sake, but I like a hot sake too. But I do love like sake wine, rice wine, just really good. I also love a sour lychee martini to go with like a yuzu sauce or some lemon zest on the fish.
Nice.
So I love that. Um I will say with like halibut, which I love halibut.
Very dense,
Um,
very, very dense fish.
yes, I love anything that's citrusy to kind of break up that that heaviness, we'll say, of the fish, like that butter. So
Gotcha.
anything that's going to be super citrusy. So whether it's more of a Pinot Grigio or like a cider, like a pear cider, but something that's going to have like a bit more of a bite.
I have to introduce you
Um,
to Quincy. I have to
yeah.
introduce you to Quincy.
What's
Yeah.
Quincy or who's Quincy?
All right, you got because we're gonna close up here in a moment, but you got your browser up.
Yeah.
Open a tab and type
Okay.
in QNSY. Just QNSY should come up. Queens, New York, QNSY.
Ooh, of course, that makes sense.
And there's some friends of mine. They started their distillery. I met them through a woman who I'm going to introduce you to, Laura Pete. And they're a local here, but they do pre-mixed cocktails, but malt based,
Okay.
so that so they don't have to be sold in liquor stores. They're sold other locations, but they're absolutely phenomenal. And you would love Laura Pete because Laura was in your world
Mm-hmm.
for 20, 30 plus years and got tired of the big boys and all that kind of stuff and went out on her own and represents small batch companies like you ever heard of a little show called Downton Abbey? Little show
Mm-hmm.
called Downton Abbey. Heard of that one? So
Yeah.
this is one of the companies she represents. High
Oh.
Castle, High Clear Castle. That's actually the Downton Abbey Castle. It's a gin that's made from plants grown there, like all the stuff that goes into it is grown at that castle. So I have to introduce you to Laura,
Oh,
and
please do.
you'll love her. And Star Major says, blood orange martini with a smash burger is my new go-to. You have become so bougie, old man. That is the bougiest thing I've ever heard in my life. Can I get a blood orange martini with my smash burger? That is so California bougie. Like everything about that sounds California bougie. Well, look, folks, one more time here. If you're finding me through Ella or Ella through me, make sure you take a moment, like, share, follow the YouTube, the Facebook pages, all those kind of things, the Instagram. It really truly is how we get our stories out. If you're following us over on TikTok, it's those TikTok things that makes this message go out. It helps us find other people and other people find us. That's how all these things happen. That's how all these messages get out there. Now, next week, it's Halloween next week, folks. So we gotta stick to our themes here. So next week we have Candy Howard coming back out. She is leading Ashley Morano and Nathan Koger. I think Cougar or Koger, Cogar. So what do they? Koger? I would say Koger, not Cougar. There's no extra R in there. So Nathan Koger, they are all paranormal investigators. We're talking about, since we got Halloween coming up, paranormal investigations. What do they got going on? She's got her Candy's got her new channel, which is it's pretty impressive. So it's like a paranormal channel, and they've got like pages you can click on where they've got cameras in paranormal spaces, like places that are big hitters. That just like the camera just stays there. You can watch it all day long to see if something moves and some shit. Yeah, so we're gonna get into all that next week. It is Halloween time. And if you've watched any of my shows, you know that at the minute we start talking about anything ghosts and all that related, my equipment's going to break. Shit's not going to work right. The ghosts know that, like, hey, we're watching you, Murph. We know you're out there. Now, don't log off on me after this, Ella. We got to talk for just a minute. Well, let me ask this question before we get into any upcoming speaking engagements, places they can see you. How often is the podcast going out?
The podcast will relaunch. We're going to talk about love on season 3. So it's going to be about the intersection of love and money. But just go to ellaparlor.com. You can keep up, and whatever social platform you prefer to use, whatever social media you like to use. I try to keep up on all of them. TikTok, the least, you guys. I'm sorry. And Sean, I got to say, I'm a little disappointed. I had ideas of what we were going to talk about, and we went a totally different direction.
See?
Oh my gosh, I wanted to talk about your life and recruitment and all of that. Ooh, I want to do that
You
too.
don't know. So hold your thumbs up. Don't move them. Just hold your thumbs up. So okay. So here I'll help you out real quick. When you're using a MacBook, what are you using?
I'm using a MacBook.
Okay, so you should have a spot where it shows your camera
Mm-hmm.
on there, and if you click on it, under I might have to show it to you. So you should have somewhere that says gestures.
Okay.
And if you click on where it says gestures, it allows you to
Do
use certain
that.
hand gestures. So like you'll
I
see
might have
this.
I might have
This-
turned it off.
Oh, you can't turn it off because you can do that.
Yeah, I might have turned it off because in the middle of like serious meetings,
Or you could do this.
I'm like in the middle of that's so cool. That's
And,
really cool.
and then you got this one. This,
Yeah.
this one never works right for me. Let's see if I can get it to work. It
Well,
might,
if you're
might
putting your
not.
fingers up, you gotta do it like
Is it,
this.
is it just like this? I don't know. There it goes.
Yeah.
There it goes.
There you go.
So you can do all those kind of things.
That's so
Welcome to
fun.
hand gestures with Sean.
Mm. I was gonna do a much dirtier one, so that one works.
We'll go with that one. So, but any upcoming engagements anywhere where people can see any speaking engagements?
No, I'm taking so October, November, December is really crazy. So I'm working with distributors and doing meetings and presentations right now. Um, but come January, I'll do a refresh and figure some things out. I keep saying I'm going to end the book tour and then it keeps scooting out a little bit
That's
longer.
not a bad thing.
Yeah, so I feel very, very, very grateful. As long as people want to hear about it, I will still talk about it. But I really thought I was only going to talk about this book for a month, and it's coming up on its year anniversary next month. So
Nice.
I'm very, very grateful.
All right. Well, in every episode of every show, and like I said, don't log off on me. The guest always gets the final word, Ella. So, what is our final word tonight?
Ooh. Um, well, I'm going into my birthday this weekend, so I guess I'll say what's been on my mind, which is truly, truly every day is a gift. Wherever you are right now, you have something that people are praying and begging to have, even if it's something as simple as getting out of bed in the morning. And going into my next birthday, as frustrated as I could be that things aren't always the way I want it to be, I know that I'm blessed that I get to see this birthday because I have a lot of friends who never got to see 35. And I know that as time goes on, that blessing will become bigger. And just always knowing that no matter how hard life is, there are people begging on their hands and knees to have something you have.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.